today. Now.
All right. Here's our Kickstarter video.
My name is
Joe, wanna
CML,
bring
and
in
I'm
our
here to
guest?
tell you about our book, A Brief History of Magic Cards. Magic cards have been around for over 2 decades, yet the game still exists largely outside of mainstream culture. How has the game been around for so long? Who plays it? And what does Magic have to teach the rest of us who don't play? Our goal is to print a book that introduces Magic cards to mainstream culture.
My name's Cassie Murphy. I'm an illustrator based in Seattle, Washington, and I've always been a fan of magic card art. It's just so fantastic, literally. And to be able to play with those tropes and those themes as a cartoonist for this project was really fun. And I hope you'll have as much fun reading the book and enjoying the art that I created for it.
Magic celebrities have called my writing the most interesting and honest take on the game, and as a result, maybe, my pieces have been even more popular outside of the Magic community. But there's still so much more of the Magic story that I want to tell. Publishing independently will allow us to delve deeper into the game's culture than ever before. A Brief History of Magic Cards, believe it or not, is the first book to document 22 years of Magic culture and the people behind it. If you want to support work about the gaming world we live in today, learn more about one of its oldest and dopest franchises, deck out your house in a sweet poster, or have a chance to play Friday Night Magic with me, you should consider backing A Brief History of Magic Cards. May all of your hands have monsters,
And may all your draws be live.
Open up the video. Are we live yet? All right. Hello. Welcome back. This is CML. He's here to talk about his book, A Brief History of Magic Cards, which is on Kickstarter currently. Thank you for being here.
thank you for having me.
Tuck it in. Sorry. Tension. How are we now? That's good.
Great.
Cool. So, say hello to the camera.
Hey camera. Hello world.
Hello, world.
It's good to
Hi.
be here.
Welcome.
So, I understand that you've been playing Magic for a very long time.
Quite a bit. I had a little bit of a hiatus in my teenage years, but a lot of people did. The game was massively popular when it came out. It's massively popular now, and the book is basically about my personal evolution as a Magic player and how that parallels the evolution of Magic in general and also gaming culture and society at large.
Cool. So, how did you get started playing Magic?
Well, all my friends were doing it.
Yeah.
All the cool kids were doing it, so I decided I wanted to be one of the cool kids and play Magic, which is kind of how it happened again in my 20s.
Yeah. And I saw an article on, I think it was Kotaku, maybe, where you played Magic on shrooms.
Now, this is true. It was an effort to feel better on the way to Portland. We had to get up very early for the tournament, and coffee wasn't doing it, so I turned to shrooms as a last
Why not?
result.
Yeah, logically.
Why not?
Well, you feel very good. It gives you an emotional boost, and as long as I was able to, take a small dosage throughout the day, then I was able to retain my mental acumen without having my ego disappear and then make more logical decisions than I usually would.
So, we've got the chat room open here, so if you guys have any questions, please let us know. So I want to talk about the art because I love it. So who is the artist for this?
Sure. The artist is my friend Cassie Murphy. She recently moved to Seattle 7 or 8 months ago and is active doing art for video games and for projects like this. And we thought this kind of aesthetic, it's fanciful and
Yeah.
positive, but also a little bit ironic in the context of the book, would be perfect for setting the tone.
Yes, and it looks like maybe she took shrooms when she made the cover. I love it a lot.
Well, Yeah, the cover is great. We were very, very happy with the way that it turned out. This kind of art that's fanciful and also gives off a good vibe is kind of a hallmark of Magic cards in general, and how a lot of people that don't play Magic are aware of what the game is like. That's what they think of when they think of it, in addition to all the hilarious media articles that'll spout out once every year or so.
Right.
So
Yeah, the art on Magic cards is absolutely gorgeous. I know over at HBS, at Harebrained Schemes, where I used to work, there were a ton of artists that were like, oh, my life's goal is to make a Magic card. So do you know, what is the process for that? Do you know anything about it?
Very cool. Well, it used to be different. And this is something that we talk about in the book. Back when Magic was just first getting started, it was a bunch of people in Peter Atkinson's basement. He was the CEO.
Yeah.
And so I actually interviewed with the recently deceased Christopher Rush, who did Lightning Bolts and Black Lotus and a bunch of other iconic cards. And he said it was very open-ended in those days. You got a bunch of artist royalties, but now you just work your way up. And a lot of it is, based on who you know.
Yeah.
It's a creative thing.
It is. Do you have a favorite card overall? Chat room wants to know. Thanks, Gaia.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I like Whip of Erebos a lot. I'm mainly a green mage, but Whip of Erebos has some positive associations.
What?
Well, winning a tournament on shrooms. The thing is, Wizards would, and we talk a little bit about the game itself, but not so much that it would, dissuade people who don't know the game very well from getting into it. That Wizards has been designing cards like that to be very, very good over the last few years consciously, and a lot of the compulsion of playing Magic is being able to be creative and unique and make your own deck. And my good friend Rob and I were able to do that with this centerpiece.
Nice. So, how long have you been working on the book? Because I know the Kickstarter is, I think it's got 12 days left, 11 days left?
Yeah, something like that.
So how long have you been sort of working on this project before the Kickstarter launched?
Lots of time for the Kickstarter left. Make sure to check it out.
Yes, we've got the link going in the chat room right now, so people can check that out.
Super cool, yeah, and a nice handy-dandy video and so on. Oh, I conceived of the book project while I was playing Magic and when I went to the Pro Tour in Brussels, and I thought there's something about this that should be described and is emblematic of gaming culture and Magic's place within it. As for the actual draft, I wrote a longer form version of the book, which I'm hoping to be coming out in maybe 6 months or so. That'll be more comprehensive of a history of Magic with all the prurient episodes tossed in there, with all the weird mainstream media coverage put in there, but it's mainly over the last few months that we've been able to carve out the small-scale project.
So, okay, in Brussels, how big was the tournament in Brussels?
So the tournament in Brussels was the biggest tournament in the world in terms of a prize pool. Or in prestige or whatever, but because it was invite only, it was, I think, something like 450 people. I probably finished 445th.
I can just imagine like a giant legion of Magic players descending upon Brussels.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, in fact, that is going to be some
Imagine
art.
all of them on shrooms.
Well, you can't buy them in Amsterdam anymore. That's the difficulty.
Yeah, that's the disappointing part.
You get a doobie. I mean, very strong, but it's not quite qualitatively the same, right? But Magic does have a lot of very big tournaments like Grand Prix that are not invite only, so you can show up as anybody. I met a guy in Berlin as the closing episode of the book, where he said, yeah, I'm going to Krakow for the Grand Prix, which had maybe 2,000, 3,000 people. And he says, like, do you know that there is a big card game tournament there? And I'm like, yes, I do. I just came from Brussels. And he said, why did you go to Brussels? What's going on in Brussels? And then the book ends.
There you go.
Someone in chat wants to know, do you have any other favorite card game or board games other than Magic?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to play poker for a year professionally. I played StarCraft for 6 or 7 years. That's probably my nomination for the best video game of all time.
Okay.
In college, I smoked a lot of weed and played a lot of Super Smash Brothers, but I kind of get obsessively into these things, and Magic certainly caters to that addictive part of my personality.
So, I'm very curious sort of what you think about addiction and games, because I know that you kind of touch on that in your book, right? So
Definitely.
Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, Magic can be kind of a jealous mistress sometimes. If you want to play at the very highest level, it's difficult to do much of anything else unless you're tied in with a team consisting largely of people who are doing exclusively that.
Yeah.
The more Magic you play, oftentimes, the more Magic you want to play.
Right.
It's a difficult game, and that's something that's kind of a holdover from the previous era of video games, except for it's a multiplayer thing, so that makes the design more resilient and everything. You know, you can level up, reach your way to the top.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you think that that environment of people sort of can be like
Encourages it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I imagine it's like a bunch of alcoholics hanging out together, you know?
Yeah, or smokers.
Yeah.
Or coffee drinkers. Yeah, definitely
Oh,
it
we know the
does.
coffee drinking.
All right.
A
I mean,
lot.
yeah, definitely.
All day.
Yeah, the stimulants can be helpful, but
Can. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm really curious. Do you think that I mean, I don't really know. Do people? I mean, like, athletes use steroids. Do I mean, obviously you used shrooms, so do you think that is that a culture within the Magic community?
I don't think anybody else does shrooms at tournaments.
I mean, okay, maybe not shrooms, but do you think that there's like a use of stimulants beyond coffee or?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
You can take a Provigil or an Adderall. I mean, it's prescribed to a lot of people in the area too. Here,
Yeah.
it's a PED for software development.
Yeah. Okay.
For example, and sometimes writing, but no, I don't think that there's like a big overarching drug culture. It's a little closer to, I don't know, video games or esports
Yeah.
where.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a question. How has your experience using Kickstarter been?
Kind of great, actually. Yeah, I mean, self-promotion can be exhausting.
No kidding.
Especially when, yeah, you guys know all about it, right?
No kidding.
Well, when you're doing it alone, like in front of Facebook or whatever, and you're messaging people that you haven't spoken to in a couple of years, or people that you don't have the ideal business relationship with necessarily, it can be something that feels like a referendum on your entire life. But when you come in and do an interview like this, it's really fun.
Yeah, good. Well, good. I'm glad you're having fun. I'm having fun too. So that's good. If you were to write a second book after this one, what would it be about? Wow, chat. Like, let's chill out. He hasn't even finished with this Kickstarter yet.
Well, we do have almost a complete manuscript, so it's a fair question. But like I said, we want to do the bigger book for Magic. We're also looking at a few more projects that might have, how do I put it, more mainstream media
Yeah.
appeal. So one of them is a Jane Austen novel, except for it has the Kardashians in it.
Oh my god, I would read that.
It's called House of Cards with a K. So we're working on
I would
that.
read that so much.
We're working on the annotated
Okay, you just put
Lebowski.
together House of Cards, which is a show I love, The Kardashians, which I kind of love also, nobody judge me,
It's really good,
and
right?
Jane Austen, which is great. All of these things are things that Emily likes.
Jane
so
Austen is really good,
please
isn't
read
it?
this one.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Well, like my Victorian novel professor said the other day, he wrote this big article in The Atlantic about how novels from the 18th century or the early 19th,
Yeah.
like Jane Austen, are making a comeback because they feel like reality TV shows or other big media.
That's true.
Right.
That is true. Let's see. It has Kardashians. Cool. What was it like playing your first game of Magic against your father? Did he teach you about the game?
So he was learning at the same time that I did. I taught him about the game, but then he taught me about the game when he figured out how his deck worked and crushed me with it.
Nice.
He's a blue mage through and through. I don't know how my parentage affected it, being into the color green, but
Let's see. Oh, come on, guys. I'm still cool. You can. Okay. Let's take a side. Just take a moment to talk about the Kardashians, who are very smart business people. Let's be real. They are not upset that people don't like them. They have like $80 million apiece. Plus, like, I can't even. They're fine. They're fine. They don't need my love. I don't love them, but you know what I mean.
it has 2.8 stars on IMDb, except for everybody watches it.
Yeah.
Because it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kardashians.
And, okay, and they've got this game. Like, each one of them has a game that makes
Oh, yeah?
so much money. You guys, it's ridiculous.
Games?
Like, yes, they have games. They have, okay, that is a niche market. It's not even niche. It's just girls.
You guys
like,
just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, you did. You know, I'm
We say a
gonna
niche
defend
market
the
for half of
Kardashians.
humanity.
For half of humanity. You know, I'm not saying that I play them, but lots of girls do. And I'm sure lots of guys do too, because they're just like fun little games and they are money makers for sure. So I can't even get down on the Kardashians for that.
Wait, what are these games like?
They're like, they're just mobile games that are like, they're kind of role-playing-esque. Like, you go in and you play as like a friend of one of the Kardashians, and then you meet all the other Kardashians, and every now and then they'll have like a special guest star
Okay.
that's like another famous person. But
Sure.
all these different like pop stars are starting to have these games. Like Demi Lovato has one. I know some other ones do. But that's a market that is so there that they have taken by storm. I can't be mad about it because it's amazing the way that they've done it.
I really like it too.
Yeah.
What if in the game you could play video games with Rob and Lamar?
Amazing.
Game of games, all his games, right? Well, this ties in, to another theme of the book,
Yeah.
which is the commercialization of nerd
Yes.
culture. Now that it has a big secondary market, and I argue that Magic was the first to have this kind
Yeah.
of subscription model, or whatever, or also cards that
Yeah.
retain their value, then it's a lot more viable as a
Right.
commercial enterprise.
How long do I mean, how much space is there between when Magic cards come out? Because there are new ones all the time.
Definitely. So it came
I've
out.
actually never played Magic before.
Really?
I know, I'm a little scared because I'm
Not a
pretty sure
single
that I
game.
would get no, never.
Magic cards, not even once.
No one ever wanted to try to teach me. To be honest.
I've tried playing multiple times, but it's one of those things where I knew I would get sucked into it so intensely that I was like, okay, I need to keep a little bit of distance.
Yeah, definitely.
I see you guys are not happy with me about this Kardashian thing. I don't give a shit. I don't.
Me neither. I support the Kardashians.
Yeah.
The timeless hilarity. It's been funny since the days of Jane Austen. It's not going
Yeah.
to stop being funny.
Exactly.
So Magic came out it's slightly less old than Mansfield Park
Yeah.
or Pride and Prejudice, whatever, in 1993, and it's one of the longest lasting games of all time. If a game can have that kind of longevity,
Yeah.
in the same way that literature or a TV show can, then that's very cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Definitely. I think
God, everybody is talking about the fucking.
we should probably all go to PAX, and we're gonna have to take you into the magic room.
Definitely.
Oh God, that sounds terrifying. I would walk in and just be like, ah, what do I do?
Well, a lot of people are just dropping in, so I mean, a lot of it is that there is the Pro Tour at Brussels, but there's
Yeah.
also a lot larger of a community of people who play tournaments not that often, or people who play tournaments in casual settings in game stores drinking a beer.
Yeah.
And then even beyond that, there's just maybe a ratio of 20 to 1 people that never play tournaments and just hang out with their friends. and
I
do
like the
nothing.
hanging out with the friends part. How do you see Magic competing in the future with increasingly popular online-only card games like Hearthstone?
That's a great question. Gosh, they're a little bit behind, aren't they? Because Hearthstone is so big, but Magic Online, of course, is kind of a crude program. They could have invested a very small amount of money and made a lot more money from it. But if you look at the announcement from the Hasbro CEO, Brian Goldner, a few months ago, he starts talking about brand management and a few things, mainly getting the storyline to make everything more inclusive from a narrative perspective. Promoting diversity was in the Forbes article, but also he was very opaque about this, but they said that Magic is a top 5 esports brand, which
Really?
may not be true right now,
Interesting.
but it may be true in the future. So maybe they're going to come out with like a new version of Magic that you can play exclusively online. I wouldn't be surprised about that.
They're probably already working on it.
Yeah.
There you go.
How do you feel about Fantasy Flight Games and their living card game model, which basically kills the collectability and secondary market of card games?
Gosh, I don't know anything about it. I'm embarrassed.
It's okay.
Jeez,
Jeez, you stumped our guest. That's really rude.
Well, what I say is that, like Hearthstone, it's also difficult to monetize. The transaction costs of Magic are very high already.
Yeah. How much is it for a card? Like, does it sort of scale?
On Hearthstone?
I mean, either Magic or Hearthstone.
So in Magic, I think it makes more sense to talk about, like, so the most expensive card is 10 grand, Black Lotus.
Oh my God, what?
Right, this is also another thing that people fixate upon because it's cool
I mean,
and it's
no,
weird, right?
No, the truth is, like, it's a game, and like, you know, microtransactions happen in different ways in different games.
We could say
so-
this is a macro transaction, right?
Exactly.
If you're buying a Black Lotus, which is outperformed the S&P 500 for 2 decades and running, then that's like a big thing. That's a big stock, but it also costs a lot of money to buy and sell. An evening of Magic, if you're playing without the initial investment costs of making a constructed deck, is somewhere around $15, $20. If you have a beer, which I recommend, it's roughly comparable to playing pinball or having 4 beers instead at a
That
bar.
makes it feel accessible to me. It always seemed really inaccessible because all I hear about are people playing really large scale, like professional, you know, like last time I saw someone just hanging out playing Magic I was in high school, you know?
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that there are people that do just kind of like play it for fun.
They want to bring back the casual appeal
Yeah.
in that way, and I think that's a very smart marketing strategy. Like if you get more of a broad swath of mainstream culture, because I'm arguing that the niche demographic of Magic is not necessarily played out, but could be transcended,
Yeah.
then the game is going to be a lot more healthy from an ecological perspective. The decks are quite expensive to buy too. Like an average standard deck will be, that's the newest format, is like $400 to $500. In Modern, you can run you $1,000 or so, in Legacy $2,000, and Vintage, if you want to play with the Black Lotus, you know, can run up to 25 grand, which is something that, you know, a factoid you put in the book to appeal to people that don't necessarily play but do have memories of hanging out in high school.
Yeah. Let's see. How do you feel about digital incarnations of Magic the Gathering? Does that loss of personal interaction take away the magic?
Yes and no. Something like duels is really good. My best friend from Magic, Rob, started playing duels about 5 years ago. And that's how he got back into the game. But then he wanted to also get out of the house
Yeah.
and hang out with more people, so he had to play the paper game. It's a useful conduit, and it's something that's pretty fun in and of itself. And, well, though you're playing against a computer, if you have the Go computer
Yeah.
crushing the human as of a couple weeks ago, then maybe Magic is a hop, skip, and a jump away.
What would you think of virtual reality meeting Magic? Do you think that that's feasible?
It would be very cool.
Do you think the Wizards would be interested in that?
Well, hugely so, because the role-playing aspect is something that they're putting at the forefront of their marketing efforts right now. Like, as a kid, you got to look at old Magic cards and pretend you were a wizard. They looked like old-school artifacts that you would pick up wandering the plains or whatever. In virtual reality, if you get to be these planeswalker characters, that would be really awesome, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Like, what if you got to play a card, but instead of sitting in a convention center and it's hot and you're tired, what if you actually just got to be in this rocky, plush fantasy setting?
Yes, I'm all about
That
that.
would be
I want
awesome.
that very badly. That sounds really cool.
Maybe even Seattle, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome.
So every time I end up meeting a Magic player, one of my favorite questions to ask them is, what is the weirdest themed deck that you've ever made?
Gosh, I made this weird deck around Martyr of Sands with life gain, which is traditionally kind of a scrubby effect. And we had this card in it that would kill them if you gained enough life. So we did that, and it was a stupid deck, but it was also kind of good
Yeah.
within the constraints of the format.
I think that was one of the first things that was possibly my introduction to definitely I'm gonna get sucked into this. I got to keep my distance. Was just the versatility with decks.
Yeah.
Building your own customizable decks. I ended up making a deck that was just all about wolves.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I gotta stop.
Sure, Innistrad, right? 2011, 2012. It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a lot of the appeal. You get to be creative without necessarily being optimized. In the tournaments, I kind of crave to be optimized.
Yes.
Exactly.
But that'll suck you in even more, right?
Well, yeah, because then I had my casual experience with it, and then God, once it gets really competitive, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
gotta be careful.
Well, it's expensive too. I'm a private tutor for my day job, and a lot of the kids that I work with love Magic cards, and that's exactly the appeal for them. I think in a lot of ways they get to have a lot more subjective fun with it than people who are hardcore into the tournament culture, which is perfectly healthy.
It is, unless it's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's addictive to them too,
Yes.
right? And considering a lot of those kids are of my personality
Yes.
type, it's super easy to understand.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. One more question. I guess this isn't really a question, but Parvis said Potent says, I like looking at the cards sometimes, but the actual dueling gameplay and the focus exclusively on strategy makes me too anxious to enjoy playing. So do you think that maybe you have any advice about, I don't know, easing into it and
Sure, yeah.
casually?
Well, this is something that's in the book. It's a great question. As a kid, I was super scared to put myself on the line at the card shop. It was terrifying. These kids, in old school New York that would run card rooms or whatever, were basically doing the same thing in the basement of the Wizards of the Coast
Yeah.
flagship. It took me a lot of time to actually go out there and play a tournament because it could be very intimidating, especially when everybody is super hardcore into it and not as jovial
Yeah.
and welcoming as we are here. But my advice to you is just get out there, give it a try. The worst thing that could happen is it's not for you, and you can have fun playing with your friends.
Okay, and one last thing, actually, sorry.
Okay.
So the fantasy map of Seattle that you featured in your Kickstarter, where did you come up with that idea? Because I think it's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really cool. Well, Cassie's art was inspirational to wanting to do more stuff like that with her. It came naturally as a result of people in Seattle being like Don Quixote in a lot of ways, which is a big theme of the book. And then the natural beauty of Seattle is also something that makes you think of the world building or atmospheric effect in Seattle. So we have not only the fantasy map within the book, which is going to be mainly Magic themed and also tie in largely to a lot of the experiences that I narrate, but we also have a fantasy map that is going to be of more general appeal to Seattle. We're bringing in a lot of different IPs, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, in addition to Magic and Hearthstone and other games. So that's going to be at the $50 or $100 level on the Kickstarter, and we're looking forward to also selling that as a standalone product that'll have a lot of appeal outside the game, which is what we're trying to do with the book too.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here, guys. CML's Kickstarter, The Brief History of Magic, Magic Cards, is on Kickstarter right now. Mods, if you could please link that again, that would be great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Good. All right, shut it down, Joe.